mayor of the small German town of Bad Schlema has incurred the wrath of residents for suggesting they should avoid provoking newly arrived migrants.
Etwas leicht bekleidet sind. Ist das
Ganz einfach, indem wir unseren Provozieren dort nicht entlang treten.
In sein eigenes Land! In seine eigene Stadt darf man nicht mehr! Geh bloß nach Hause, Junge! Wer hat dich denn gewählt? Die kommen hierher und wir dürfen nicht mehr lang gehen!
Meanwhile, videos emerged online allegedly showing a group of young migrants attacking two elderly men in Munich.
The
person who posted it on Facebook says the altercation began when the pensioners stepped in to defend a young woman from the migrants. He says the video was recorded on one of the city's underground trains. The UN's refugee agencies released figures showing that the number of people arriving in Europe through Greece is 35 times more than it was this time last year. And there's been increasingly fierce public debate over migrants, with critics saying that far-right parties are trying to hijack the situation for their own ends. RT's been hearing opinion from both sides.
Refugees have come into Europe at a time when there's been the rising tide of the far right, and we've seen this dark cloud coming over Europe once again, and it's a very, very sad situation. But of course, there is criminality already in Europe. There are already rapes, there are already sexual abuses, and there are already attacks. Now, that is in no way meant to excuse any of this kind of behaviour. But of course, if you focus on any section of the population, if you focus on white European men and paedophile gangs and grooming gangs, if you focus on migrant communities, now we don't actually know where these people are from, their asylum or their immigration status. But of course, initially it will look incredibly bad, and it will cause a backlash, and it will whip up hysteria and hate.
We're not talking about taking millions of Australians or millions of New Zealanders or millions of Canadians or even Americans into the country. All the people who share a similar culture, which
what a ridiculous and racist analysis. The minute you start targeting people with brown skins from ethnic majorities in the world.
Yeah, we certainly don't put it down to having brown skin, in terms of there are lots of people who class themselves as Hindus, and there's lots of people who class themselves as Sikhs who are settled in this country and integrate properly. They don't make silly demands to change the way we slaughter animals. They don't make silly demands to go around wearing silly clothing, and they don't make silly demands to go around having our toilets converted so they face Mecca.
Steve, I'm a Muslim, and you've raised it absolutely clearly now that this is about Mecca, this is about slaughtering, this is about clothes.
I want to bring up one issue here about Cologne, the mass sexual attacks, Mo, on New Year's Eve in Cologne. Will this alleged criminal activity now become what we're seeing as a sort of trend, or is it simply being blown out of proportion here?
In Britain alone, every day we have 200 rapes and sexual abuses on women and 50 of children every single day in this UK, day after day after day. If anybody wants to tell me that the rape and sexual abuses are caused solely by migrants, that is a scapegoating of a real problem that we have, which is the sexualisation, the objectification and the abuse of women and children.
And of course, another very wealthy area of the world is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. Why isn't it that there's vast tracts of empty land there? Why aren't they taking lots of their own Muslim people who can then live in the lifestyle that they want to? They already have tent cities set up at Mecca ready for people, but they won't take them. I don't know why, because they're their own people.
Steve, stop talking about Mecca. Steve, stop talking about Mecca. Be tolerant of one another. We are at a crossroads in civilization. We can either choose to go down a path of tolerance and welfare and togetherness and unity, or we'll see Europe fall apart, and God knows where it will take us.